It all started with an email I should have ignored. A caretaker job at a closed-down seaside motel. 2 nights only. $800, cash. Keep watch, log activity, no visitors after midnight. That was all it said. There was no address, no signature, just a set of GPS coordinates and one strange line at the bottom. Never answer calls from room 313. I laughed at first, thinking it was just some internet scam, but rent was due and, well, desperation makes you brave. So I got in my car and drove. The route took me down a stretch of coastal highway that felt like it had been forgotten by the world. Fog rolled across the road in thick, shivering waves, swallowing my headlights whole. When the motel finally appeared, it looked like it was clinging to the very edge of the earth. The sign above flickered faintly. Ravens Rest Inn. Half the letters were dead. The building itself was leaning against the relentless ocean wind, its wooden panels gray and splintered. It was the kind of place that made you want to turn back, but the thought of that $800 kept my foot on the gas. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of salt, rust, and old rain. The owner, a thin woman who looked to be in her 60s named Mrs. Rayner, met me in the lobby. Her skin was paper pale and her eyes were dark and restless, darting around the room as if she was expecting something to jump out from the shadows. "You came," she whispered, her voice laced with surprise. "Most don't." She slid a key across the dusty counter toward me. It was brass and cold to the touch. "Your room is 101. Stay inside after midnight. Don't wander the halls." She paused, her gaze locking onto mine. "And if the phone rings, you don't answer it, especially not if it's 313. Her lips trembled slightly when she said the number. I wanted to ask why, to understand what was so special about this room, but the look on her face, a mixture of fear and resignation, told me not to push it. So I just nodded and signed the logbook. The pen barely worked, the ink dragging across a list of names that stopped 20 years ago. The last entry was dated 1999. Night came on fast, swallowing the last of the daylight. By 11, the sea was a roaring monster outside, waves slamming into the rocks beneath the cliff. The wind howled through broken window frames, and the hallway lights, one by one, buzzed weakly and then died out, plunging the inn into near-total darkness. I sat at the front desk, trying to stay awake by flipping through the old guest records. Most of the pages were blank, yellowed with age. But near the back, tucked away, I found a note scrawled in faded ink. It read, "He calls when he's hungry." I frowned, dismissing it as some old joke between past caretakers, a way to spook the new guy. That's when the switchboard behind me crackled to life. My heart jumped into my throat. The tiny bulb for room 313 blinked a steady, ominous red. I froze. My shift sheet, the one Mrs. Rayner gave me, said only rooms 101 and 205 were functional. Room 313 wasn't even supposed to exist on the grid. I stared at the blinking light as the sound began. A soft, rhythmic ring. 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 The air in the lobby turned cold, a sharp metallic chill that pricked at my skin. I reached for the receiver, my hand shaking uncontrollably. Mrs. Rayner's warning echoed in my head, but a morbid curiosity was pulling me in. Before my fingers could touch the plastic, the ringing stopped. Silence, thick and heavy, pressed in on my ears. I let out a shaky breath, forcing a nervous laugh. A wiring glitch, I told myself. It had to be a wiring glitch. Then, from the far end of the hallway, I heard it. The distinct, slow creak of a door opening. My hand fumbled for my flashlight, its beam cutting a nervous path through the oppressive dark. I swept the light down the corridor, and it caught on a tarnished number plate halfway down. 313. The door was open, just a crack, and from inside, a faint red glow pulsed, soft and rhythmic, like light reflecting off fresh blood. My feet moved on their own, as if pulled by an invisible string. The floorboards groaned under my weight with every step. A strange smell filled the air, cloyingly sweet but with an undercurrent of something rotten. I reached the door and pushed it open wider. The room was empty. The walls were blackened and slick with damp, and the curtains hung in shredded tatters. On the bed, where a guest would sleep, lay an old rotary phone. Its cord was wrapped tight around the receiver, coiled and twisted like dark veins. A shiver ran down my spine. I had to get out of there. I turned to leave, but a voice whispered right behind me. Soft, low, and so close I felt its cold breath on my neck. "You answered." I spun around, my flashlight beam wildly slashing through the darkness. There was no one there. The room was just as empty as before. But then the phone began to ring again, the sound muffled this time, as if it were coming from deep beneath the floorboards. My eyes darted to the cracked, silvered mirror on the wall, and that's when I saw it. My own reflection, pale and terrified, and standing right behind me, a man. He was tall, dressed in elegant, old-fashioned clothes, and terribly pale. His eyes glowed with a faint red light. His lips curled into a slow smile, showing the sharp glint of teeth that were far too long, too pointed to be human. "Welcome to my room," he said, his voice as smooth and rich as velvet. "I've been waiting for someone who could hear me." My flashlight flickered once, twice, then died completely, plunging me into absolute darkness. The last thing I remember was the faint warmth of his hand settling on my shoulder, and the chilling sensation of something cold and sharp slipping into my veins. When I opened my eyes, I found myself lying on the cold, hard floor of the lobby. Pale, morning light was filtering through the blinds, casting long, smoky shadows across the room. My flashlight was on the counter, its light still flickering weakly, the beam trembling across the open guest book. A dull, throbbing ache pulsed in my neck, in time with my own heartbeat. I reached up to touch it and flinched. 2 tiny, sore punctures. The memory of that man's voice echoed in my mind, a chilling whisper. "Welcome to my room." I sat up slowly, my head spinning, the world tilting on its axis. And that's when I noticed it. The motel was silent again. But this wasn't an empty silence. It was a held silence, like the very walls were holding their breath waiting for something. I grabbed my phone, but it was dead. Not out of battery, just dead. A black, unresponsive screen. No time, no signal, nothing. I pushed open the lobby door and stepped outside. The air hit me immediately. Thick, damp, and heavy with the smell of salt and decay. The ocean below the cliffs was unnaturally still, as if the tides themselves had been frozen in time. I turned back to look at the motel, and a knot of ice formed in my stomach. Room 3113's door was gone. Not just closed and locked, it had vanished completely. The number plate was still there, nailed crookedly into an empty patch of wall where the door should have been. Stumbling back into the lobby, I tried to find a rational explanation, but my brain couldn't grasp it. The building itself felt wrong. The walls seemed to curve slightly inward, as if they were breathing. The air buzzed with a faint, low hum, like distant, faulty electricity. Behind the front desk, the guest book was open to a new page. My name was there again, but this time it was written in what looked like blood-red ink. And just below it, a second name had appeared. A. Rayner, the old woman from the night before. A wave of dread washed over me. I sprinted down the hallway toward her room, 101. The door was wide open, swinging gently on its hinges. Inside, the bed was perfectly made, but the sheets around the pillow were stained with a dark, dried substance. The curtains fluttered softly, even though the air in the room was completely still. I stepped closer, my shoes silent on the worn carpet, and then I heard it, a faint, raspy whisper from under the bed. "He's awake now." My heart leaped into my throat. I knelt down, my hand trembling as I reached for the edge of the bedspread. Hesitating for a second, I finally lifted it. There was nothing there. only an old, cracked mirror lying flat on the floor, reflecting the water-stained ceiling above. I saw my own reflection staring back at me, but it wasn't moving. As I watched, frozen in horror, its lips curled into a slow, predatory smile revealing faint, sharp teeth. I dropped the bedspread and scrambled backward, slamming hard against the wall. At that exact moment, the hallway lights flickered on by themselves, one after the other in a bizarre sequence. 101, 205, 207, each one blinking once, then twice, and then 313. The number glowed with a sickening red light. Suddenly, the phone behind the front desk began to ring. It wasn't a normal ring. It was a deafening, violent sound that seemed to shake the entire building. On the old switchboard, a single light blinked crimson. 313. This time, I knew better. I wouldn't touch it. I whispered to myself, over and over, "Don't answer. Don't answer." But the ringing grew louder, sharper, until it felt like it was coming from everywhere at once, from inside the walls, from beneath the floor, from inside my own skull. A trickle of blood ran from my nose. Without even meaning to, my hand shot out and grabbed the receiver. The line hissed with static, but it was different this time. Rhythmic, soft, almost like breathing. Then a voice came through, unnervingly calm and patient. "You shouldn't have come back," it said. "But now that you have, we share a pulse." I tried to speak, to scream, but my throat was dry and tight. My gaze fell to my hand gripping the phone. The veins were dark, like black ink spreading just beneath the skin. The voice continued, sounding closer now as if it were right beside my ear. "He isn't gone. He's becoming. Look in the mirror, caretaker. Look and see what you've kept alive." I slowly turned my head toward the large window across the lobby. My reflection was standing there again, but this time, it wasn't mirroring my movements. It lifted its hand, slowly, deliberately, and smiled that same horrifying smile, its sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. And then, all the lights went out. Plunged into darkness, the only thing I could see was my reflection, which kept glowing with a faint internal red light. A whisper, cold and soft, brushed against my ear. "We'll talk again tonight." The line went dead. I blinked, and the world outside was dark again. The sun was gone. It wasn't a new night. It was the same night, looping back on itself. The motel clock on the wall started ticking backward. Down the hall, with a low, agonizing creak, the door to room 313 reappeared, swinging open. I could see the silhouette of a man inside, waiting. And this time, when he smiled, I felt a new sensation rising in my chest. A gnawing hunger. His hunger, stirring inside me. The transformation had begun. Thank you so much for joining me on this terrifying journey. If you enjoyed this story and want to see what happens next at the Seacliff Motel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I have a feeling our nights here are only going to get longer. Stay safe, and see you in the next one. The clock on the lobby wall ticked backward. It was a jerky, unnatural motion, like a film rewinding. 1 tick, 2, then it froze at exactly 1:13 a.m. At the same moment, the steady, warm lights of the reception area flickered, then bathed the entire space in a sick, pulsing red. The air grew heavy, thick and smelling of ozone and smoke, clinging to me like a shroud. A strange sensation flooded my body. It felt like I was sinking into the floor, my limbs turning to lead. Yet, through my veins, a cold fire began to burn, a chilling energy that was both terrifying and exhilarating. I glanced toward the large front windows. Outside, the usual quiet street was gone, replaced by a dense, swirling fog that pressed against the glass as if it were alive, searching for a way in. My eyes were drawn back to the reception desk. The guest book, which I'd closed just moments before, was now open. Its pages turned slowly, one by one, moved by an invisible hand. As I watched, frozen in place, new names began to appear on the blank lines. They were written in a glistening, blood-colored ink that seemed to soak into the very paper. A symphony of creaks echoed from down the hallway. One by one, every guest room door was swinging open into the darkness. A chorus of faint, dry whispers drifted out from the open doorways, hissing and slithering through the air, all repeating the same word: thirst, thirst. My heart hammered against my ribs. I stumbled backward, trying to put distance between myself and the impossible scene unfolding before me. My back hit something solid but soft. I spun around, a scream caught in my throat. It was Mrs. Rayner, the sweet old lady from room 204. But this was not the woman I'd checked in earlier. Her skin was waxy and unnaturally white, stretched tight over her bones. Her eyes, once a kindly blue, were clouded over, milky and vacant. She leaned in close, her breath a cold draft on my cheek. "You let him feed," she whispered, her voice a dry rustle of leaves. "Now he feeds through you." Before I could even process her words, before I could ask what she meant, her body just collapsed. She didn't fall. She disintegrated into a pile of fine gray dust that settled softly on the worn lobby carpet. Suddenly, the silence was shattered. The old-fashioned switchboard behind the desk erupted in a cacophony of ringing. Every line, every room, all at once. The individual rings merged into a single, deafening scream of bells that vibrated through the floor, through my bones. And then, just as abruptly, it stopped. The silence that followed was heavier, more profound than before. On the switchboard, a single light remained glowing, a malevolent red eye in the darkness. Room 313. My feet moved on their own, carrying me away from the lobby and toward the hallway. It was like walking into a nightmare. The corridor, normally just a short walk, seemed to stretch out before me, impossibly long, the patterned carpet writhing in the dim red light. The floorboards groaned and bent under my weight, as if the hotel itself was trying to swallow me. At the very end of this distorted hallway, the door to room 313 stood ajar, a sliver of intense red light bleeding out from the gap, painting the floor in a crimson path. Hesitantly, I pushed the door open. Inside, sitting in an armchair with an air of perfect stillness, was the man from last night, the charming, handsome guest I'd checked in without a second thought. Now, his skin was paler than porcelain, flawless and unnervingly perfect. His eyes, fixed on me, glowed faintly like dying coals in the darkness. He didn't get up. He didn't have to. His voice filled the room, smooth and hypnotic. "You carry my hunger," he said, his words sliding under my skin, coiling in my gut. "You've tasted the dawn through my veins." I remembered the strange metallic taste in my mouth when I'd woken up that morning, a taste I'd dismissed as dehydration. I tried to speak, to demand an explanation, but my voice came out as a garbled mess of static, like a broken radio. "You can leave," he whispered, a cruel smile playing on his lips, "but you'll take the darkness with you." My gaze drifted to the window. The fog outside was no longer just fog. I could see shapes within it, faint silhouettes of people, drifting and writhing beyond the glass, their faces pressed against the pane, eyes wide with a silent, eternal need. My stomach twisted into a painful knot. Why me? I finally managed to choke out. He tilted his head, his expression one of detached curiosity. As he spoke, the very walls of the room began to pulse, a slow, rhythmic beat like a giant heart. The floral wallpaper seemed to ripple, the patterns darkening and swirling. On the nightstand beside the bed, the black rotary phone began to ring, its shrill cry cutting through the suffocating quiet. The man, the vampire, slowly lifted the receiver, his movements fluid and graceful. My hand trembled as I took it from him. I pressed the cold plastic to my ear, and I heard a voice, a terrified whisper, pleading, desperate. It took me a second to realize I was listening to my own voice, whispering one thing over and over. "Help me." The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering against the floor. "The hour is yours now," the vampire said softly, his voice almost a caress. "Every night at 1:13, the call will come. Feed it, or it feeds on you." Panic finally broke through my paralysis. I bolted from the room, stumbling back into the impossible corridor. I ran to the nearest door and threw it open, desperate for an escape, only to find myself standing right back in room 313. The vampire was still there, unmoved. I tried another door, and another, and another. Each one, a different door in a different part of the hallway, opened back into the same room. The hotel had folded in on itself, trapping me with him. He stood near the bed now, as calm and timeless as a statue. The fog from outside had begun to seep through the cracks around the window frame, crawling across the floor like ghostly tendrils, wrapping around my legs with a chilling touch. "It's beginning," he said, his voice laced with anticipation. I dared to look down at the floor. My shadow was cast long and distorted by the red light. But it wasn't right. It was taller than me, sharper, its edges defined. And as I watched, it turned its head and smiled back at me, a wide, predatory grin revealing a set of gleaming fangs. The phone rang again, a single, sharp, echoing peal that sounded like a final heartbeat. My hand began to rise, moving without my command, reaching for the receiver. Ring, ring, ring. My fingers brushed against the cool, smooth plastic. The red light in the room faded, plunging everything into absolute black. The last thing I heard was the sound of breathing. 2 sets of breaths, perfectly in sync, mine and his. Thanks for sticking with me through that nightmare. If you love stories that get under your skin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The world spun back into focus, not with the gentle haze of waking up, but with a sharp, brutal clarity. The sky was wrong. It wasn't dawn, it wasn't dusk, it was a bruised, sick-looking purple. I was standing outside, and the Raven's Rest Inn loomed behind me, half swallowed by a dense, suffocating fog. Its windows were like dead eyes, its neon sign completely dark. Unfamiliar, like a suit I'd been forced into that was 2 sizes too small. My first overwhelming instinct was pure, primal fear. Run. Get away from this place. But when I turned, the road I'd driven in on, the one that led back to the highway, back to sanity, was just gone. In its place, a field of black sand stretched into the fog, an endless, dead shore. It was then, in that crushing silence, that a sound pierced the air. A phone ringing. I turned back toward the motel, slowly, every muscle screaming in protest. There, through the glass doors on the lobby's front desk, a single light on the switchboard pulsed a menacing red. Room 313. The sound wasn't just in the air. It was inside my chest, a frantic, echoing heartbeat that wasn't my own. I took a step, then another. My feet made no sound, left no prints on the damp ground. The closer I got, the more the fog seemed to pull back, as if the world itself was ushering me back into the motel's embrace. The lobby was different. The air had a faint shimmer. The peeling wallpaper was gone, replaced by smooth, new walls. Every lamp was lit, casting a warm, deceptive glow, and soft music drifted from some unseen source. It was as if time had wound itself backward. The guest book, which had been empty, was now open on the counter, its pages filled with names and dates. Beside each entry was a single, chilling word. Stayed, answered, changed. My heart hammered against my ribs as I flipped to the last page. My own handwriting stared back at me, a final, damning entry. Caretaker, 313. A shadow moved in the hallway. He stepped into the light, the vampire. as elegant and calm as I remembered. But his eyes, they weren't just dark anymore. They glowed like dying embers in the dim light. "You've been fighting it," he said, his voice a quiet murmur that slid under my skin. "But you can't run from what you've already become." I glanced at the glass door. His reflection shimmered for a second, then vanished. But mine was still there. Pale, sharp-eyed, and I could see it. A new, ravenous hunger starting to glint just beneath the surface. "Why me?" I choked out, but the voice wasn't mine. It was lower, smoother, colder. He smiled, a subtle, knowing curve of his lips. "Because you listened," he replied. "Because when the world told you to stay away, you had to know why. That curiosity, that is the bloodline that feeds us." He gestured toward the incessantly ringing phone. "It's your turn." The ringing grew louder, more insistent. "No," I whispered, stumbling back. "I won't." The sound intensified, vibrating through the floor, through my bones, until the lamps on the tables shattered, raining glass down like frozen tears. The vampire's faint smile never wavered. "You already have." And he was right. My own hand lifted, trembling, moving with a will that was no longer my own. It reached for the receiver. The moment my fingers made contact, the warm lights in the lobby died, replaced by that same pulsing red glow. I could hear the ocean now, crashing far below, but the sound was wrong, like the ragged, underwater breathing of some colossal beast. I lifted the receiver to my ear, a moment of static-filled silence, and then a voice. My voice. "You can leave now," it said, calm and detached. "Someone else will come." I dropped the phone as if it were burning hot, scrambling backward, but the vampire was gone. In his place stood only a shadow, tall and still, its edges warped into a grotesque smile. The old clock on the wall ticked once, twice, and then froze at 1:13 a.m. Outside, a new sound cut through the fog. Headlights. A car pulled up, and a young man, looking no older than I was, stepped out, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He looked lost, confused, just as I had. He started walking toward the lobby. I tried to scream, to warn him, to tell him to run and never look back, but my throat was sealed shut. My reflection in the glass door, however, had no such problem. It smiled, a wide, predatory grin, and whispered words I didn't say. "Welcome to Raven's Rest Inn." The bell above the door chimed as he entered. My body, now a vessel, moved with a chilling grace. I slid the guest book toward him. I handed him the key to room 101. My hand was impossibly pale, my touch cold. "Sign here," I said softly, my voice a soothing melody. Behind me, the switchboard crackled. The light for room 313 blinked red. Waiting. The young man, the new guest, smiled politely, completely unaware of the part he was about to play. As he turned to go to his room, I dared to look at my reflection one last time. My eyes burned with a faint crimson light. The edges of my teeth caught the lamplight, looking unnaturally sharp. The ocean was in my veins now, an endless ringing, a whispering, insatiable hunger. The motel itself seemed to sigh around me as the fog crept back in, shrouding the world once more. The clock on the wall reset itself to 12 a.m. exactly. I took my seat behind the counter, and then it began again. The phone started to ring, the sound filling the empty waiting air. Patient, eternal. When I finally lifted the receiver, the voice that answered was no longer human at all. "Thank you so much for joining me on this chilling journey into the Raven's Rest Inn. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Let me know in the comments what you think happened to the original caretaker. Until next time, stay safe and maybe think twice before checking into a roadside motel.